Hey guys, it's Peter and welcome to my channel, Peter Likes Books. Okay, so today I thought I would do a kind of different video than what I've done on here. As many of you know, I am not just a booktuber, but I am also a author. And a lot of people have asked me a lot about my book, which I really appreciate. But people have also asked me a lot about A, the writing process, B, the publishing process, and all that kind of stuff. And so I thought, I'm just going to do a video and kind of talk about my process. Now, one of the things that's interesting is that when I decided that I was going to write my book, I have been writing, my undergraduate degree is in creative writing and literature. I have been writing since I can remember, short stories, little poems, whatever. I'm sure many of you are like that. I always thought it was too big of a dream to actually get published. So, and I know that I'm not a John Green or somebody like that. People have reminded me of that on my channel under the comments, so I appreciate that. But for me, I do feel like I've accomplished some kind of personal goal by getting my book published and having finished my book. And interestingly enough, it was actually a bigger deal for me that I finished my book than it was to get it published. And I kind of didn't know what to do with myself afterwards. So my first piece of advice, starting at the end and going backwards, is to any author out there or any writer, and if you're writing a book or a short story or whatever, you're an author. Call yourself an author, tell yourself you're a writer, start telling people when they say, what is your career, what do you do for a living? Start telling them, I'm an author, I'm a writer. Because it'll start resonating with you and then you'll start believing it yourself. And that was one of the hardest things for me, was that I couldn't really believe that I was a writer or that I was an author, because it wasn't the way that I was making an income to pay my bills. But if somebody's an actor and they're working, on off-Broadway and they're waiting tables and you say, what do you do for a living? They say, I'm an actor. They don't say, I wait tables. Maybe they do, I don't know, but I think that most of them say that they're an actor or that they're a dancer or whatever. So I think as writers, sometimes we don't say that, and I think that we have to be prouder of our craft. That being said, I think it would be really interesting if a lot of other booktubers and authors on here did their own video about their writing process. I called this video How to Write a Book, but that's just my perspective. There are many different ways, and actually, when I started writing my book, I reached out to a couple of my favorite authors, and they kind of told me their process, and their process was similar to mine, but then they were different, I found, as I went as well, because I had never actually completed a whole book. So I'm going to start from the beginning, and I'm going to kind of explain to you what happened with my previous book. And the first book that I wrote was called The Before Now and After Then, and it came out in July of 2014. You can get it on any kind of ebook, Barnes & Noble, Amazon, Audible, iTunes, all of those things. So anyway, the way that it started for me was I had a very close friend of mine who, and I'm kind of like in the back door kind of going in, but anyway, she owns her own publishing company. And so she said to me that she would be very interested. I had actually, in me writing a book, I had actually written a post on my old blog that's just called petermon.com about marriage equality, and it kind of went viral. It did go viral, but anyway, and then I started guest blogging for the Huffington Post, and some kind of really cool things came out of that for me because I just was put out there who I am. And it was interesting, yet again, the more I am myself, the more positivity and goodness comes my way, and I really believe that in the world. The more good you put out there in the world, the more good that comes back to you. Anyway, and so, she said, I would love for you to write a book, and I would stand behind you, I would publish it, and whatever. And so I was really interested in it because I'd actually sent out a lot of query letters to agents and to publishers. I'm reaching for my coffee, can you see? And none of them were very interested in it. And so, and I hadn't finished it, and so she was willing to work with me, but she was like, this is my deadline. And I think I had 6 weeks at first, or 2 months, or something like that. Well, I kept on putting it off, and putting it off, and putting it off. We went to a music festival in Florida, and I said, as soon as I get back, I'll do it. And I have to be honest, I don't know what happened, but when I came back from this music festival, I was rejuvenated, and I started writing right away. And it was weird, because the original book that I was writing was about two girls, and I'm still working on it, but down the road. It's about two girls, one's 15 and one's 8, and they live with their mother in a trailer park in the middle of Indiana, and the whole thing takes place over 4th of July weekend, and it's about how their mother dies of a heroin overdose, and they don't know what to do with her. And so that was the book that I was writing on, but it just didn't feel right to me. I wanted to read something happy, and so one of my friends from high school a long time ago said, you know, like I put this quote out there about like all of us are freaks or something like that in high school. And she goes, I think you should write that story. I think you should write about, you know, being gay in high school and about all of us. And it kind of turned into this thing about, I had this crush on this guy in high school that was only at our high school for 6 months. I was like, my hand movements were getting ahead of what I was saying. So I never got a chance to know him. I always wondered what happened to him. His name was Rusty in real life. And so I ended up writing this book about what would have happened had we met. And it also tells the story of, a lot of people ask me why I came up with this. At the time, I was grieving a lot of the loss of my mother. And my husband said to me, I think it would be cathartic for you to put your emotions and your feelings into this book. And so I started writing about my feelings of grief through the boy in the book. The main character's name is Danny. That at the opening of the book, his identical twin brother is killed in a car accident. And so it's a lot about his grieving process and coming out into his own. So this is just kind of how my process worked for me. I was driving around a lot at night. This is really how I got into young adult books to listen to and to read as well, because I knew I was writing a young adult book and I hadn't read tons of it before. And so I started just listening to tons of young adult books on Audible and fell in love with young adult writing. I feel like as much as I love adult contemporary and adult literary fiction, I feel like with young adult writing, it's more creative sometimes and the story is more endearing to my heart. And maybe that's because, I don't know, I just didn't deal with some of my demons in high school, or I wasn't able to be myself, and so I'm reliving that. I mean, therapize the hell out of it. That's not even a word. Analyze the hell out of it if you want. I don't know. But for me, I started thinking about this character, Danny. And a lot of people ask me if I'm Danny, and I'm not. And so I got home, and what I did was I just started jotting down notes. And you probably can't see here, but this is like a lot of my notes. And I just started, you know, writing who he was and whatever, and it was so interesting because as I did, I saw him kind of sitting over here on my couch, and he would like it was weird. It was like, I mean, not really did I see him, but like, you know, I would write down things and whatever, and then what I did was I wrote my first chapter, which was 22 pages, and this is my first chapter in all of my notes that I wrote. And after that, I had talked to Brent Hardiger, who wrote the Geography Club, and he kind of suggested to me coming up with an outline and then making, I can't actually find these, I just looked for them, out of the outline, making a chapter list from it. And so I did, and I sat down and I came up with 38 chapters, and actually I was at my office the very next day, and I was like, I don't know what to do with it worked together as an outline, so this would be my suggestion. First, you outline whatever it is you want to write. I started with the beginning. I wrote the end because I knew how I wanted it to end. It was filling in the middle of it to have a story that would make sense. Now you have to understand, I write contemporary young adult books. So for me, it's not a lot of this fantasy and murder mystery and making things work out. So for me, it's a little bit more organic, the way that the process works. It's the characters becoming alive and their story kind of telling themselves. I think to some degree it's a little bit more difficult to tell a story that is a thriller or a mystery or fantasy because you have to really think ahead of what you're doing. I sat down in my office the next day and I literally hand wrote the ending of my book. And once I had that, it was so interesting. Like I went home and in 3 weeks I wrote out my book. I just knew what it was supposed to be. I will say that it is not the greatest book in the world, but it is a book that I am very, very proud of. It is a book that I would have wanted to read when I was 17, 16 years old, 18 years old. It's a coming-of-age story about a teenager that is gay and out and doesn't have any issues with it. And it's about his dealing with his grief. And I will talk about that another day. But I did want to share with you my process. So that was what I did, and I outlined it. Then what I did was I started just writing, and I would print out pieces, and I wanted to give it to a lot of people to read, but not anybody in my life really wanted to read my book. My husband said, I'll wait till it's all done and published, and then I'll read it. My best friend was very similar. I will tell you what I did was when I was completely done with it, and I mean to tell you, like, I literally sat down and I wrote out, like, so many words a day. It was interesting because Lainey from Ginger Reads Books tweeted out that she wrote 5,000 words this weekend, and I think that is phenomenal because for me, I think I was writing like 2,500 words a day. I can write very, very fast. I wrote my whole book straight through. I know people talk about editing millions of times. I think I will be the writer someday of my own definition, that if I get things published down the road, that I don't go through and write 5 drafts. That's just not my process. You know, I've read things where like John Green and other authors, I know I've mentioned him more than once in this, but where they go through and like they throw out their whole entire first draft. That's just not my style. I think that works for them, but for me, it's not my style. And I think the greatest thing about writing is that you have to develop develop your own style and what you want to do and who are you as a storyteller and what is your world of writing, and be true to yourself and, you know, let that really resonate with who you are. And I really told the story of and I'm character driven in my books. And so I really, I always think about the characters first. And so what ended up happening was, here's my book. And I put it in a binder, and I took it over to my friend Tanya, and she did not read it until it came out. So I just hit the camera. So anyway. And the word count was completed was 75,455 words. And that ended up being about 285 words printed. So then my friend and I worked on editing it. I will tell you that people don't know a lot about this about the book, but we edited it several times together. And I was one of the very first books that she published because she was very small then. She now has about 20 authors that work for her, several editors that work for her. Her publishing company is called Pen Name Publishing. I am so proud to be part of that family. They publish diverse books around the world, some of the most interesting books that I have ever read. It is so cool to be part of a boutique publishing family. But I will tell you this, that we did so many things together the first time around, and here is my cover hardback copy. I really loved it when it came out. I really did. But then we came up with the paperback cover, and I love the paperback even more so. So see, I do not love this paperback now, but I will tell you, when this book came in the mail, and I got my first hardback copy of it, because I got, you know, see there, Pen Name Publishing. I was so proud to actually hold my book that I wrote, and it was just such a cool thing. So, you know, my whole, and do you love, I picked these little, USB things because for each book. So each book I have written, I have on a different one of these little things. And so the next thing I was going to say is that, okay, I have so many book ideas as a writer. Literally, this thing is filled with book ideas. I could go through here, and I could tell you, I have, literally, I think there are, 30 book ideas in here of different books I want to write. And the book I'm writing right now, I don't really want to tell you a whole lot about, but here's my process. So I did it the exact same way. I journaled a lot. Okay, so here's my, can you see? So here's my outline. And then I go through, and then what I did was I turned it into chapters, and then I have these little tabs. Do you see this? I use those a lot. I love those. Here they are. See? And then I tab different sections for characters, little things that they write, just different ideas about them. And then I go through and I outline each character, and then I do my outline, and then I turn it into chapters, and then I write the book. It's very pragmatic for me. Things I have to have. Pens. Do you see this? Pens and coffee. I love to have tons and tons of pens. Right now, where's my favorite pen? Oh, here it is. This is my favorite pen. And always orange Sharpies. But that being said, I also have to work in lots of colors. So I have to have all these kinds of colors. Do you see? People are like, this has nothing to do with writing a book, but it has everything to writing a book. Because you have to be surrounded by things you love. Like candles. I always have to have candles when I write. And this is one I got from Anthropology, and it is called Volcano, Capri Blue. Oh my God, I wish you could smell it. It's so great. But I have to be surrounded by things I love. I have to have, I always have to have coffee. I usually make a pot of it at home, or I drink Diet Dr. Pepper. I also cannot have any TV or music on when I write, unless I'm specifically writing a scene. My book, The Before, Now, and After Then, I think has some 35 songs in it that I wrote about. And so I listened to a lot of that music when I wrote. It has a lot of The Cure. It has a lot to do with mixtapes. Get it? There are mixtapes on the front of it. Anyway, I think that the best thing I would say to you as a writer is start writing. Don't stop. Writers write. I have interviewed about 20 writers in my life, from Jackie Collins to Charlene Harris to Ellen Hopkins to tons of people for my website Rant. And every one of them, I ask them what's their process, and they say, I write every day. Writers write. And I say, what do you write? And Jackie Collins said, I write the book I'd want to read. And that was so true to me. It really resonated, I've said that word 4 times, with what's in my heart. Write the book you want to read. Don't write the book you think is going to sell. Don't write the book you think other people will want to read. Write the book you want to read. Write the story you want to tell. Because really, it's all in your heart. It's your art. And if only one other person in the world reads it because you force them to, at least one person read your book. And that's really the cool thing. And for me, it was so hard. I took a year off, or 2 years off almost, from writing another book, because after I finished my book, I was kind of like, well, I did that, now what? And it's really, really hard. Anyway, I hope this video helped a little bit. I hope it inspired you. Sit down, outline your book tonight that you've always wanted to write, and just start writing it. I think it is so great when people tweet out how much they've written and all that kind of stuff. And if we inspire each other, I think we'll just write more and more great books will come out there. And remember, every person has a different voice. Your voice doesn't have to look like everybody else's. Your book doesn't have to look like everybody else. You have a different story to tell. I love you guys, and I'll talk to you later. Bye.